How's everybody doing tonight? Slip on. Let's see. Struggle streaming. Let's see. Let me get my slides together. Give me one in the chat. Let's see. Getting started. Let's see. Give a few minutes, see if anybody's gonna fall in. So I'm struggling. What's up, A317? Appreciate you. So obviously I'm on a little late, getting it going. How you doing tonight? What's up, Aiken? Let's see, you see it. Let's see, so I'm good there. What's up? Gonna do a little data privacy tonight. It's kind of one of my new things I've been doing. I think it's part of GRC, but we can always debate that. What's up, Aiken? I'm feeling pretty good. I can't complain, man. Getting it going. What's up, brother Michael? Glad you can join me. Can't complain. Let's see. About to get it going. Let's see. I was gonna grab. Is that it? Yeah. How's everybody doing tonight? You know how we do it. Any tech questions or cybersecurity questions, just put them in the box. We can hit on them. We can multitask. While people following, I'm just going to look at this quick bleeping computer article talking about Cali real quick. Then we'll jump into those slides. So I think I'm going to switch it up real quick. There's people falling in. You see it, that's bleeping computer report. Google pays $93 million to settle an Android tracking lawsuit in California. So Cali be throwing out them big CCPA fines. That's one reason that CCPA is Cali and GDPR is Europe. They're pretty close together. So we're going to just read that article real quick to get in there. I figure you were taking a break or something when you had time. I emailed you about a course review. Did you? I don't think I've seen that. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com, Aiken. Because I checked my email. Send that again to me, Aiken. I was in Jacob Hill on CMC when you were talking. CMC's pretty hot. That's what DOD's going through. I did a short CMC video myself. If you could look on my inside my YouTube, if you search for it, I did it. But yeah, resend it to me. Aiken, I didn't see it. I think I checked my email yesterday. Remind me at the end, Aiken, and I'll check my email. Send it. Then at the end of the show, I'll check my email, see what's going on with that. CMC is pretty hot. Of course, anything with DOD is going to be hot. Preparing for the blue team role, first interview. I get as a red team role looking for a network. I was confused, but I'll try the bag and try it. Yeah, man, sometimes you got to get in where you can fit in and pivot. Yeah, that's my thing. Let me know what you prepping on the blue team firm. Once again, I do NIST, IRS, I do assessments, auditing. I do a little everything. Yeah, resend that to me. Then at the end, hey, can I check for it? Real quick, like you said, Google pays 93 million to settle an Android lawsuit in Cali. That's why we're talking about CCPA today, and that's why companies are trying to get a handle. Cali, a general attorney, announced today Google will pay 93 million to settle a privacy lawsuit alleging it violated United States consumer protection laws. An investigation by California Department of Justice found Google had engaged in deceptive practices related to retaining and utilizing an Android user location data for purposes such as consumer profiling and advertising. Of course, that's how Google make their money, profiling and advertising. All without, this is the big one, right? All without obtaining their proper informed consent. We'll talk a little bit about that when we go through the CCPA. Focus on Google's tracking of users' location, even when they believe they're disabled. The issue at the center of the allegations is discrepancy between user expectation and Google's location tracking practices. Android users were under the impression that turning off the location history in their device setting would disable location tracker entirely. And basically, that wasn't true. CCPA came in and just gave them a big fine. So that's one reason we're going to talk about CCPA today. So let's get back to it. Share. Let's see. FTC got a lawsuit against them. Oh, yeah, they suing everybody. Those are easy fines, man. And those big companies, they got deep pockets. Amazon always getting sued, and Google's always getting sued. And you know, when you make 25 billion in profits, what's a couple hundred million, man? You just reach into your sock and pull it out. So we're gonna talk once again a little bit about data privacy. For me, GRC, governance, risk, and compliance kind of go together with data privacy. Even if you look into NIST 800-53, one of the big families now is data privacy because everybody's just really state general attorneys, the government, FTC, everybody's really hitting hard on privacy. So all the compliance now has compliancy security families. They're actually ramping those up. So. And at the end too, we're gonna everybody know AWS is kind of my cloud of choice. We're gonna go into AWS. It's a white working paper, and they talk about how to set up your AWS for CCPA data privacy. Talk a little about encryption, S3 buckets, different services you can use to make sure you're CCPA compliant. So I'm gonna touch on a little bit about there. Privacy engineers are a kind of a topic. You just go through as an engineer to make sure your Azure, AWS, GCP is configured correctly with encryption and deletion so you can be CCPA compliant. So we're going to touch on that a little bit too. Once again, you got any questions, drop them in the box, tech or cybersecurity. We can definitely pivot and come back and make that happen. So when I Googled, which I forgot what service I pulled this out of, but CCPA, I didn't look at how many years you needed for experience, but I showed you the average salary. And that's usually if you go on Indeed and put data privacy, which CCPA is usually part of, our national average was 87, rounded up to 88. I think you need about 3-4 years though with that. So shout out to data privacy getting hot. There it is. CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, is a state statute intended to enhance privacy rights, consumer protection for residents of California, the United States. The bill was passed by the California State Legislature. It came in effect in 2020. November 2020, government passed another Proposition 24, also known as the California Privacy Act. California Privacy Rights Act, CPRA, which amends CCPA. Basically, which I don't know why, there's not a national privacy standard yet. Like we can do NIST. My man had in there too, what he was looking for, CMMC for DOD, HIPAA and high trust for health. There's not a that I could find a federal privacy act. So California has one, Virginia has a big one, New York has a big one, and the DMV area with Virginia, those four have their own state data privacy act. When I worked at this large state agency, when we get vendors in, we had customers in every region, so we had to become accustomed with Cali. Because if you're doing like a national website, a la if you're Amazon or any of the big guys, you got to be familiar with CCPA, CPRA, and that's why Amazon just gave you these services to make you compliant. So when you come to Amazon and build something, you're already covered, right? So that's one reason I'm touching on that. Let's see what my man A317. I feel like data's everything these days. With the DBA stuff should be learning cloud. Why, if we starting from other tech? No, I agree with you. Shout out that I was an Oracle DBA for about 4 years. Crazy part is every time I became an Oracle DBA, they always sent me to help the programming staff. Did you see that Keep It Techie video? We were talking about DBAs on there, and I think DBA is going to roll up under cloud engineering, because with Azure and AWS, a lot of things DBA used to do, especially in the cloud, you don't have to, what you have to do on prem, you don't have to do on the cloud. Like I used to start the database, carve the disk up. I could just get a Oracle database on AWS, they install it. And the only thing I have to worry about the schema tables and optimizing my indexes, A13. So I think DBA in the future is kind of morphing into DevOps, and cloud engineering is going to kind of split that in half. So, but that, like I said, I need to dig in that more. But I really enjoy it. That's when I really got my first bag, when I became an Oracle DBA. I was certified in Oracle in 1995. A13. That's how old I am. I got my first Oracle class in Bethesda. I was Oracle DBA certified in I think it was 1995. Those were the days. But let's keep rolling. Let's see. What's the two main parts when you're dealing with CCPA? Are you a business and are you a service provider? Once again, when you look at RFIs, requests for proposals, and requests for information, RFIs and RFPs, you got to differentiate which one of these you're going to be. Then you have different requirements we're going to touch. Most people are going to be on a service provider. Usually you're in the cloud, you get an API, right? You call it API. So I think that's where most people are going to fall from a cybersecurity thing and a privacy thing. I think that's where you're going to fall. Very different definitions for these two type companies. They each have very different roles and responsibilities. CPRA amended it, CCPA, once again in 2023, which is this year. So obviously they're growing and changing a little bit. Let's see what my man's 317. No, I lied. I think it is on prem and in the government. A lot of people have so much Oracle, but Oracle is so costly. I think everybody's spinning off into Azure SQL Server database. If you're AWS, they're pushing their Aurora, which is MySQL and a Postgres derivative, and they're actually pushing MySQL too from a schema. So I think Oracle's days are over with. Amazon finally got off of it. It took them 10 years to get off of them. They actually eating their own dog food. They're actually running on DynamoDB and Aurora. Is that what they run Amazon on now? But now Oracle had a big run. But once again, they were expensive. It's hard to manage and it's super pricey. So now hardware is so good. I think hardware just speeds up the process. Shout out to Sheed, always supporting. Shout out, go check Sheed out. He's always checking me out. Appreciate him. Yep, Bethesda, Maryland. Yeah, that's where one of Oracle's big offices used to be, Aiken. Years ago, Oracle was because everybody's getting the government money. So you want to be in that DMV area. They had a huge training center out there. So I used to stay in 5-star hotels and take Oracle classes for about a month, Aiken. I really enjoyed that. Uh, let's see. CCPRA, also known as Prop 24, it was voted on 1920. I'm sorry, yeah, 2020, expanded the consumer privacy law bills upon CCPA 2018, established more provision state laws, right there, limit the usage of sensitive personal information, which includes precise geolocation. We just saw that article where Google was getting sued, race, ethnicity, religion, genetic data, private data, sexual orientation, specified health information act creates a CCPA agency as dedicated agency to implement and enforce state privacy laws, investigate violation and access penalties of violation. So we just saw that quick bleeping article where Cali sued Google for 93 million, right? Well, they gave him a 93 million fine. I think they did it on behalf of the whole United States, but I think they did use the CCPRA and CCPA state regulations. They hit them with the big fine, though, right? So, what does that entail in CPRA? The right to correct incorrect personal information that a business has about them, and the right to limit the use and disclosure of sensitive information, personal information collected about them. That's one thing. Shout out to Google, right? They get your information and sell it to third party people, right? So you can get those ads, right? So I think that's one reason CCPA came about, right? The right to correct your information. And really, that's the big one, the right to limit. If they limit, right, then Google can't make any money. So I don't think Google cares about paying 93 million, right? That's sock money. Check a few things. I pay for a SQL class with you and keep it technically fundamentals. I actually thought about doing a SQL class. People just don't use SQL that much anymore. Because now, if you're a Java programmer or if you're a SQL database, you can use Hibernate. They have tools, right, that you put your objects in and it'll write your SQL before. But yeah, A13317, we could talk about that. Shout out to my man Alonzo. Go check his channel out, man. He's always doing good stuff. Real estate, other business stuff. So I always check him out. Him and she get up there dropping knowledge. I always join. I've been on, I always join the panel with them, usually talking a little business. Even though I'm old, I try to learn a few tricks. But once again, the CCPA, we're going to get the right to correct and the right to limit, right? Those are the things in data privacy. When we talk, a lot of people talk about GRC, governance risk. We're securing the data, we protecting the data, we make sure it's encrypted. But from a data privacy, like when you delete your information on Facebook, it's not deleted. When you go back in and say you want it back, you get it back, right? So that means they didn't delete it. Cali, when they say they want you to delete it, it has to physically delete, right? Or right to use, right to limit of who they can sell your data to for those ads. Right? So that's the big difference between security and data privacy. Security, I can make sure you MFA, make sure you use the 16-character password, but I don't talk about how do you control your data, right? Who owns the data? Who's responsible? Who can correct it? Who I can sell it to, right? That's data privacy versus security. Once again, I do a lot of GRC, and we're really starting to get into data privacy. Additional things, once again, with this CCPA Act and the regulations, additional requirements is a right to know about the personal information a business collect about them and how it's used and shared. Right, what they usually do, right, when you sign in, they say, "Do you accept these? Do you accept these rules and regulations?" It's 14 pages. You just hit the check mark. You really don't know what you selected, right? So CCPA says they got to make that a little more legible, right? Break it down into less legalese on how that's going to go. Right to delete personal information collected about them with some expectation. right to opt out of the sale or sharing of their information, and the right to non-discrimination for the exercise of their CCPA rights. Sometimes now you can opt out, right, of not having your data sold or shared, right? So you're starting to see that a little more, and non-discrimination. So once again, these are CCPA regulations. You as a company, if you're doing business in Cali, you need to kind of not need to you need to understand this, so you could get a big fine like Google, right? So in most large companies, Amazon, Facebook, they have CCPA and CPRA experts, usually from their size. And I've actually was looking at a contract from Amazon. Um, they have attorneys drawing their stuff up, so their attorneys talking to our attorneys. So, but once again, I do a lot of RPs, RFIs, used to, right? So I have to read that language from a cybersecurity perspective. And once again, GDPR and CCPAs are coming up in a lot of those contracts. Once again, people trying to make sure they don't get sued like Google. Let's see. You made me realize mainframes idea what is not a single online course for who's fixing them. Old guys who just hanging around. Once again, I worked at a Fortune 500 insurance companies. Man, you can't beat the mainframe and really the per record charge of it, because they just doing ton of it. If you go on Indeed and you put IBM in there, there's a ton of it, man. Yeah, it's just old guys. They get paid a ton of money, but it's not a lot of people still trying to get out there. So it's probably just the big companies that are running mainframes. I know a lot of states are running mainframes still. Um, Number one, it's for the bank for the buck, and two is they still got a lot of old guys. So a lot of them old guys are hanging on. So, what is a business in CPA? The law exists to regulate how business treat consumers, aka we just saw Google. Define a business as any legal entity that operates for a profit, operates in California, determines the purpose and means of the process of personal information, meets at least at one of these three thresholds. Virtually any type of company can be a business, not only social media or big tech companies. It's not necessary to have any physical presence in California, even in the United States, in order to be considered a business under CCPA or CPRA. So what that means is, if you're taking California citizens or entities in California, you putting them in your database or your website, and they got a California address, you under CCPA, CPRA. Right. And that's what a lot of businesses are getting nervous. Right. If you like, even though Google paid 93 million, right? That's stock change. They got three floors of lawyers just looking at this stuff. Right. So they know the cost benefit analysis of it. So once again, to qualify at least one of these three for business, at least 25 million. Annual buys received for commercial purposes, sale or a share for commercial purposes, personal information, anything over 100,000 consumers, devices, or household, or derives 50% or more of its annual revenue from the sharing, or selling of consumer personal information. Right? And those consumers, once again, need to be located in Cali. But if you're doing a website, I mean, if you're popular, California is one of the biggest states, right? So you're probably gonna have some people in there. So you, as a GRC cybersecurity person, or like 8317, you want to work on your SQL skills. Every month you need to go in there and figure out where your customer base is. And if you're coming out with more than 100,000 or 50% more of your annual revenue comes out of Cali, right? Then you under CCPA. Then you need to start moving with California intentions. I just say it like that, right? So, what are other rules when you're under there? Is data retention. Sets limit on data collection and retention use. The business cannot retain personal or sensitive information for purposes other than initially collected, or longer than reasonably necessary for the disclosed purposes. Right. So when you put your stuff in Facebook, they're selling your stuff. They're sending you to ad revenues, right? That wasn't the initial purpose of them retaining your data. Right. So you got to opt into that or kind of figure out how that works. Right. So if you have a website, selling it to third parties so to make money is not part of the initial reason for you signing up for the initial collection. So what do you have to do for a company about that, right? So make sure once again you don't get fined by Cali. Processing sensitive data imposes a new set of responsibilities for processing sensitive data, which in information that reveals a person geolocation, sexual orientation, race, religion, health, government ID, social security numbers, passport, finances, credit card access code, genetic information, or communication login. Right. And we know if you're talking about genetic information, 23andMe, those other companies. So now, of course, if you're in Cali, they have different requirements. So once again, you got to understand your business and how does that apply once again to GDPR so you don't get a big fine. Shout out to NC Worker for coming in and joining us. Definitely one of the day ones when I had like 300 subscribers and I had about 3 people on the live. Shout out to NC Worker. We go way, way back. But now, so once again, when you're doing CCPA, we just saw Google, we get $93 million fine. So once again, you need to know where your customers are coming from, because if you're saving any of these and you have 100,000 or if so much of your profits were in Cali, you're under CCPA jurisdiction. Deletion requests, they must also be passed to service provider, contractors, third party which the business have sold or shared your information to. So if they opt in and they agree to share, that your third party are your responsibility. Right. So that's the big thing coming out this year is if I use another third party to help my program do some stuff, LexisNexis, I need to check your credit score. Shout out to She. We know he got the 825, but if I send his information to LexisNexis to get his credit score, because we're going to do some business together, if he deletes it out of mine, I got to make sure it's deleted out of LexisNexis, right? Because that's a third party. I'm using it to, once again, check his credit score or some other information, right? So I need to, once again, I'm responsible for making sure it gets deleted out of there. Under CPA, if I don't get that handled or done, I could get a big fine, right? Or the company I work for could get a big fine. Business must include additional provision in their contract with service providers, contractors, and other third parties. And I'm gonna start doing risk assessments and auditing. And part of auditing is when we do a contract and we reach out to LexisNexis. It's called a DPA, which is a data processing agreement. When we sign our data processing agreement, what data we're going to share, how we're going to do it. In that agreement, I need to put that when I delete something, they have to delete it in our contract or agreement. So when you do business with a third party or another company, it's called a DPA. We have to agree on what we're going to do, then we have to put the terms of that agreement in there, right? Which is once again that third party. So what is a service provider? A legal entity that operates under a service provider contract, operates for profit, receives consumer personal information for business, process personal information on behalf of the business. And this is probably what you're going to be doing 9 times out of 10 when you share information with another company with CCPA. It's going to be a service provider, right? So once again, operate for profit, consumers' personal information between businesses on behalf of business. Usually API, right? I'm going to be calling API call. Once again, if we're talking about LexisNexis, I could get credit score, check if they're really live business, but LexisNexis could be saving information. They're going to send me a key and some MFA stuff so we can communicate. So once again, if I delete out of my system, I need to make sure it's out of there. And 2 is from a cybersecurity perspective is whatever security level I'm at, I got to make sure LexisNexis is at that. I'm doing IRS work, I need to make sure they are at the IRS level. If I'm doing DOD work and I'm sending it right, I need to make sure I send them security language to make sure their system's at the same level that I am at. Right. Once again, cybersecurity, that paperwork, right? That's that legal work. When you talk to legal all the time. Once again, must operate under contract with the business. Personal information received from that may not be retained, used, or disclosed. Operating under service provider contract means the service provider is strictly limited in its function and only exists to provide specified services or to the business with specified set of personal information. Right, but once again, you got what's up, Ty? Glad you could join me. But yeah, that's that paperwork. So in our contracts, right? Once again, we call that a DPA, data processing agreement. Those are the terms you got to put in the agreement when you sign. We're gonna look at one of AWS's. That's what they tell you in there. You can use this. It's got to be used for this and only this purposes, right? So if you go rogue, AWS is gonna be like, "Can't sue me. It was in our contract. You're negligent, right? So you have to pay all the fines." So if we get that $93 million Google fine we looked at, AWS is going to be like, we told you what the service for, you signed a contract, so you're responsible, right? So that's what this really is about, is understanding your business, understanding what data you're collecting and what's your responsibility, right? So when you're talking to the CIO, the CISO, and the president, those are the things we hashing out to make sure everybody's on the same page, right? Once again, hitting data privacy a little bit. The service provider is bound by the same condition as the business. This means in such a scenario, we just talked about this, the first service provider must put in place in a service provider contract that prevents the second service provider from using, retaining, or disclosing personal information for purposes other than those specified. The responsibility of subcontracted service provider are identical to those of the regular service provider. Right, like we said. So if I'm a hospital and I'm getting your services out, then we got to make sure we're at the same level. And once again, just talking about from a business perspective, when you create a service or you use it as services, or you're using subcontract, or you become a subcontractor with your own business, this is stuff that you need to put in your contract and understand at least at a high level. All right, so that's once again, that's why we're here in data privacy. Ensure the consumers can still exercise their rights over personal information that has been collected by the business, even after it's been disclosed to another company. The service provider contract is somewhat like a data processing agreement. Not somewhat, it is a data processing agreement that must exist between the data controllers and data processing. This is for the EU. And accepting the CCPA and service provider contract requires far fewer mandatory provisions. So like we talked about, DPA is really a contract or agreement between you as a sub and you as the main company. Once again, if we had a company where you're using LexisNexis, once again, to look at your credit score, see what you do, what you own, right? We assign a DPA between us and LexisNexis saying what they can use the data for. These are the data elements. If we delete it, how long they have to delete it. SLAs, if they go down for so long, they got to pay us, right, for their services. So all that'll be in your data processing agreement. Penalties for CCPA is an upper cap of $7,500 per intentional violation, or $2,500 per non-intentional violation. This seemed like small, but it eventually grows. So if you got like Google got 93 million, they probably got 100 million records times 7,500, right? So they can easily get up to 93 million. So even though 75, so if you got 1 million records, or if you got 10 million records times 7,500, is that $7 billion, right? So those fines could easily add up once again. So that's why a lot of times I always call it a hidden gem. When you do GRC and you do data privacy, somebody's got to review the contracts And two is I work with lawyers a lot of times. They understand the legal part, but I gotta look up the HIPAA requirements. I gotta look up the IRS requirements. I gotta look up the FERPA requirements, right? From a cybersecurity perspective. There's two sides of that. Here, let's switch real quick. Any other questions? Just drop them in the box. About to look at a few more things. You know, we can switch it up and multitask. Let's see. Let's see if they can see. So this is a quick image. It just talks about the difference between CCPA and GDPR. They're close. CCPA was really modeled after GDPR. The weird thing is I see a lot of GDPR contracts, which is weird to know when you're in the United States. So I thought that was odd. So super quick slide. We're just going to kind of just go through and just talk about a few differences. So you can kind of get a high level of one compared to the other. Let's see, CPA left, GDPR. So CPA is a statutory and regulatory. GDPR is just regulatory. We saw this, the three things, 25 million of gross. It says 50,000 California consumers derive more than 50% of its traditional. GDPR applies to businesses that hold personal data with European residents, right? There's no money component nor constituents or citizen components or revenue. And GDPR, if you're a resident, you're in there. Personal data, information that relies on individual household and devices, once again, that's CCPA. Data relates to living individuals for commercial use only, that's GDPR. Legal basis for data processing, no specific for CCPA. On GDPR, you got 6 lawful bases to process data. Explicit, legal, contractual, legitimate, public interest. What rights you have, CCPA, right to know, right to delete. We saw that right to opt out and right to non-discrimination. GDPR, right to access data, to delete data, correct data. Object person, restrict personal processing data. Object, automated data processing, and a right to port data somewhere. Opt-in necessary for data collection. No for CCPA, which I think is weird. Unless they're under 16, you got to opt in to do GDPR work. Right to opt out, both of those, yes. Age consent, 16-ish. Cookie usage, opt-in consent. Now, you know, when you go to the website, they always ask you about cookies, right? So that's where it came from, right? The GDPR and CCPA. Because cookies track you, right? So that's the reason where that cookie. Before you come, you could just jump on now all the cookies asking. See what my man Todd said. The comparison to CPA is less restrictive than GDPR. I say yes to that. We're gonna keep going and figure that out. But it looks like you ever have a full-time? Was I ever full-time? No, that's one thing I haven't been, was a Linux admin. I used to do Linux from a DBA and programmer spot, but I never was a full-time Linux guy. What's up, Chaos Rain? What's up? How are you doing, Bronx, New York? Thanks for talking that talk. I appreciate you. Everybody's learning. So let's keep rolling on that. We almost done on kind of the differences. But once again, that cookie, that really just probably came out the last 5 years, right? Do you want to accept all the cookies? Do you want to partial cookies? Do you want to control your cookies? Right. So those are the issues. International data transfer, no restriction for CCPA. GDPR requires recipient country, not EU, to provide adequate protection. Data security, no specific security requirements, but will impose privacy rights, which I think is weird from CCPA. Requires organizations to implement appropriate security measures according to risk involved. Fine, we saw that $2,500 for each violation. $7,500 is intentional. I think that's how Google got to that 93 million. They knew what they were doing. It was intentional. Once again, GDPR, 2% of annual global turnover. 20 million or 4% of annual global turnover. Fine imposed by EU's member states. Enforcer, California Attorney General. Enforcer on GDPR is EDMP and EU Commission and member states. I did a video on GDPR if you want to look at. Once again, California Attorney General was the one that fined Google 93 million. And now each state attorney general, if you have data from any state, I would actually go look up the attorney general for that state. Because now, from incident response, if you get hacked and it's 1,000 records or less, they give you the requirements for that. DR, each state has different DRI requirements too. So part of my job used to be when I worked for a large state agency is looking up states and kind of figuring out what their incident response were and really what their data privacy laws were, because they're changing pretty quick. So let's see. Let's switch over to my favorite vendor. That's the AWS page. Yep, it's coming up. So let's peek at that real quick. So a lot of times, even when I'm doing research at work, or a lot of people just ask me different things. A lot of times, I usually go to AWS page because they're a global juggernaut, so they usually have something on it about it, or how they're handling it. So I usually look out. And two is cloud is the future, so I always look at what AWS is doing, even with data privacy. So when the cloud engineers build something, the cloud architect, from a compliance standpoint / security standpoint, I got to review that to make sure we're HIPAA compliant, Cali compliant, NIST compliant. So I just come to AWS and see what they recommend for their. You see their best practices and resources. So let's see. Let's see. I think we're good. AG in New York. Oh, Letitia. Okay, New Brooksville. Yeah. So I was surprised how, and once again, the United States needs a federal data privacy and a federal incident response, because each state's kind of doing their own thing, right? Each state's trying to outdo each other state, which I think is weird. So we're just gonna once again just peruse through this. Everybody know I'm an AWS fan guy. Like, so AWS, that's their CCPA Act. Kind of what we looked over: AWS best practices, preparing for California Consumer Privacy Act, AWS services, what they recommend. So when I start, if we're going to build anything AWS from a GRC person, I will come here and start looking at it. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Once again, this is all their compliances. Let's switch over to their AWS privacy. Once again, drop any questions in the box. We're just kind of rolling. Once again, I just want to hit CCPA today, just at a high level. So their privacy notice. Once again, personal information they collect. We looked at their cookies, how we share personal information, third-party sites. Remember, we talked about third-party users. So once again, AWS has all of it covered. Information you give us, automatic information, how they use personal information to measure it. So cookies, we talked about how to do the cookie notice. They kind of make it super easy for you. How they share information. Once again, so when you're building your site, or your company's building your site, or you got to work with the cloud engineering, as a GRC person, you have to review their setup. Right. So I go here to AWS. It's okay. How are you doing cookies? How are you doing third parties? Then here, and I'm going to make sure I put this in the description, is And that's one thing I love about AWS. And we're not gonna go through. We're just gonna hit the high notes. They always give you a white paper. So right, everybody like, how do you know all this stuff, PBO? AWS has beautiful white papers. So let's hit the high notes on the white papers. Once again, you got any other questions? Just drop them in the box. So this is there. Let's go back to the top. They're preparing for CPA. They just updated in 2021. If we look in there, preparing for the CPA, when you collect data, S3 buckets, DynamoDB is their NoSQL, RDS is their traditional SQL, and Redshift is their data warehousing. So each one of those products, from a database, flat file, S3, object, tagging inside your database, they have it all covered right here. Right. So I'm not going to delve into each one of them. I'm going to put the white paper in the description, but all that's covered in the white paper. Oh, let's see. Family, please like. I appreciate you. Yep, AWS white paper. I'll make sure I put that in the description. But once again, we're going to keep going. Now, if I can find the white paper there. The white paper. Oh, there it is. Zero trust is how do you protect your system from lateral movement, which is part of CCPA. Attribute-based controls, data retrieval and deletion. So you can use Glue, Data Brew, Athena, AWS, Amazon Code Review, queries on the S3 data lake. But how do you retrieve? Shout out to my man. We was talking about SQL a minute ago. In AWS Glue and Athena, you can use SQL in there to pull data back, or you can use their proprietary language, right, too, because you want to retrieve the data. And we talked about deleting data in there, right? So AWS covers that here inside the white paper, right? Data awareness, tagging, knowledge and notifications, SNS, AWS Connect. Then we're going to look at their sample architecture real quick. But once again, when you're cloud engineers, or you as a person, if you want to become a cloud architect, cloud engineer, as a GRC person, once again, I need to be able to review when somebody builds something in AWS and this documents, make sure I kind of have an understanding of what I'm looking at. Let's go down to that 31. We'll just kind of peruse through. So they talk about security, data encryption. We know that's big. How do you encrypt it? Once again, E3, EBS on your EC2, RDS, Redshift, NoSQL. So it tells you kind of what to use to set it up. This is your shared responsibility, what AWS is responsible for and what you're responsible for. AWS gives you these components. They said you can be CCPA, but you got to configure it. We're not going to configure it for you. We're going to tell you the pieces, as you saw up there, the services you can use, but you're responsible for putting those together. All right. So that, once again, this is either managed by AWS customer, managed by Amazon Web Service. Right. And I think Amazon got 300 services now. It's something crazy like that. So they walk through the services, different compliance, ISO, PCI, which is credit cards, SOC 2. Let's see. Once again, preparing for the CCPA, which is California Protection Act. Collection retrievals. Once again, these are the services you can use that they are saying are CCPA ready. Well, we're just scrolling down to get to their proposed architecture. Was in 31. Zero trust, once again, is a government regulation. You see it in this 800-207. I did a video on that if you're bored and you want to see it, but it stops lateral movement. And how would you do that in AWS? Right? There's a lot of ways to do it, right? So it's just how they set it up. Once again, the data retrieval and deletion, EMR, Hadoop, Glue. Shout out to AWS. They got a ton of services. There's so many sometimes I get confused. So we're just gonna mosey on down to their architecture. I think it was 34. When I looked at it, there it go. Let's see. Let's make that a little bigger. So preparing for California Privacy Act. So Amazon Cognito user pool is how you store your username and passwords. If you want to use Facebook or LinkedIn to log in, once again, I'm gonna put the link in there, and it just kind of shows you if you use an API gateway, job stream. There's a DynamoDB database, Lambda, which is programming. You could use Java, query language, JavaScript. Um, put stuff in the queue, pull it out. We talked about Glue, S3 buckets, Athena. S3 bucket is just an object database where you could put raw text files, PDF files, flat files, JSON files. Then you could read out of there. Remember, look at the data, see if it should be deleted. You can categorize it, right, to meet those CCPA requirements. So, Tim, shout out to Tim. What you are why doing what you doing. I'll talk about CCPA at a high level, data privacy a little bit. I was at work and we were talking about Cali requirements when we used to work at the state. If you put Cali data in the database, Tim, you CCPA, they just fined Google $93 million because they wasn't doing CCPA or CPRA. So we just touching data privacy. Then from a GRC perspective, I was talking about what do you need to look for when Tam, the great architect, started designing stuff. She's more at Kubernetes, but she do it on AWS. We had to check her for CCPA. So how would we do that? Tam's so good though. We probably wouldn't need to check Tam. What on here you doing much better? Appreciate it. Shout out to my man, Casual Economist. Like I said, one of my day ones used to be me, him, and I used to have 4 people in the chat. Shout out to him. I'm almost to 3,000, so I'm trying to catch Tam. Shout out to Women in Linux. Go subscribe to Women in Linux. Let me make sure. So go check out Tam Women in Linux. So that's about it. I hang out. So we just talking about CCPA. If you're in this industry, check me. I can always use a check. Shout out to Tam. I got to get with her. I got to get my Kubernetes skills. That's going to be my 2024, though. Kubernetes and Docker. I got to get my container skills up. So I need to look at, I'm sure there's some CCPA for Kubernetes. I should have looked that up. But now I'm going to hang out a little bit. But we just went over at a high level. CCPA, data privacy. We know people getting fined. We know Cali's a big state. New York has some stringent requirements. They're a little crazy, and the DMV area has their own. So I might do Virginia along with the DMV. They have some specific data privacy checks. So trying to get them. So I dropped the link if anybody want to come up, just at a high level. You always see me at Women in Linux when I come on. They always. No, I don't want none of that. I would have just paid the ransomware, Tam. I just paid the ransomware. I did a video yesterday. I think me and shout out to Struggle Security. They did an incident response hot wash my boss with. We went over the hot wash yesterday. They didn't put a lot in there, but I went over their hot wash yesterday. So what happened, what they did, how many, they spent like 16,000 hours fixing it. So they must have had a ton of consultants working on that. So somebody got the bag on it. And I think they were spending $9 million, which is not really bad for a hack. I think it came up to $9 million for them to pay their third party people. I don't think they'd say who it was. That's part of their hack. So yeah, I did that yesterday, Tim. But now, sad fact, I thought they need a Kubernetes expert. It is. I'm thinking everybody's hit in Cali. They just not telling yet. Like Caesar paid the money. I think a lot of people hit because they use a lot of the same software. And like 4 or 5 prime companies own probably much. much of Cali, so I think it's a lot more people got here. You can come up if you want, Tim. You don't have to cam up. I dropped the link, but nah, yeah, them casinos, I don't want none of that, man. I take that back. I want some of that 9 million. I take that back. I want some of that 9 million. Oh, I wish it was Friday and it's just Tuesday. I gotta take some vacation time. I'm struggling. I think I'm gonna take about 3 days. I was thinking about going to Vegas, but hell, if I can't get in the room, I think I'm gonna go Phoenix with the old people. But let's see. Let me get back. So yeah, once again, you see it. That's architectural design right there. So privacy engineers, hidden gem. A lot of people. So what does a privacy engineer do? A lot of times we get read only. So when Tim sets up our architecture, we review it for HIPAA, high trust. She does a lot of government work, so that could be NIST. Somebody, let me look up my man with the CMC. Hey, Ken, you still on that, Ken? Let me see on the back end. So yeah, so as a privacy engineer, we look and just check the setup. Once again, we looked at some of the requirements for what that will be. What is up? Can you hear me? I can't hear you, Tim. I don't know if it's me or you. I can't hear you, Tam. Let's see. I don't know. I think Tam's hiding out. I can't hear. Is she muted? Tam, you muted? I didn't mute him. Yeah, I don't know, Casual. Let me drop and come back up. Tam, can you hear me? Oh, she come back. I hope. But once again, Amazon tell you what services that are CCPA or GDPR, or my favorite one, that's FedRAMP, right? It's NIST 800 in the cloud. So they tell you what services to use. So they tell you Cognito, API handler, which looks like a Lambda, drive streams, parameter stores, right? We don't want to store any passwords. Okay, that sounds a little better.
All right. Nah, that's better because I don't know what was going on. It wasn't. I didn't hear anything.
That could be me. I'm restreaming. I ain't upgraded yet.
Oh, okay. That's all good. No, what I was gonna say was, did you see the when Toyota got hacked?
Mm-mm.
So when Toyota got hacked, they shut down 14 factories. They had to pay $375 million.
To the hackers?
Yeah.
Man, we in the wrong business, Tim. We need to just go bad, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a guy friend of mine that worked on that project.
That's
For
crazy.
so the fact of hackers and how things work and what's going on, then you have not only just the hackers, like a lot of things be inside,
Oh, no.
inside job. Like I think this whole casino thing, I think they've been plotting that for years. That ain't new. They just, they just didn't have the right security in place, and they weren't checking stuff. And then they came out with they needed red hat administrators, and I covered this on my show. And they were paying red hat administrators 110 an hour. But like everybody was saying in the comments under that Twitter post, you want them to come in, you want them to secure stuff, you want them to rebuild that infrastructure. 110 ain't gonna cut it. And I know a lot of people are like, no man, 110 is a lot, but it's not compared to the work that you got to do.
You're gonna be up all night too. Go ahead. You're gonna be up
And
all night.
yeah, and they working 7 days a week. They
Straight up.
working 7 days a week, 10-hour days. So you don't ever you just wake up and just go to work. Wake up, go to work. And everybody's like, oh no, that's the lick. No, it's not. It's
No.
not the lick. You're getting used, but I get it. Some people ain't never seen that money before. But at the same token, you gotta think about what that all encompasses.
So it's gonna be boom. I worked too. When I first got in it was DOD, it was this guy, Oracle consultant. And like you said, I thought I was making his bill rate was $300 an hour.
Yep.
And he got half and Oracle got half. He was the top Oracle DBA in the Midwest. Long story short, they cut our budget, it was ended down. He was a cool guy. He goes, man, I'm gonna just go back to Oracle because my bill rate altogether with my overtime is $700,000. I almost blacked out. I was like,
yeah. Yep.
So yeah, like you said, that was in 2005. Shit.
Yep. And so, when we're talking about these hacks, is how to recover from them, how to prevent them, and how to steadily check for them. And we don't do enough in terms of training, right? Like, I'll give you a prime example. A lot of people going like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get my A+, I'm gonna get my security plus, I'm gonna get my Kubernetes exam, I'm gonna get this. Okay, well, what about the security of each one of those exams? What about how do you apply those in an everyday life? Like even the phone calls that you get every day, the emails that you get, they got attachments or links, or you don't recognize this or what have you. Like, there's the ownership on you as a person just in your everyday life, much less when you get to work. And it's not a lot put towards that. We think about it, but we don't execute on it. And that's just what I've seen.
No, facts, because we were just talking about secure coding for developers. Most developers ain't never had secure coding.
Secure code, clean code. Mm-hmm. Get that up to the man.
Because a lot of times, I used to work with our developers, man. We almost got into fist fights. Because, for them, it's like, well, I've been doing it this way, or I got to rewrite it all. I'm like, dude. But yeah, like you said, each one of those pieces has a security component, a requirement. I'm old. I like to do stigs on it. People hate stigs. They be really want to fight out. Shout out to Gabe. We be fighting on YouTube. But nah, that whole security be lacking. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's not just that you do the stig, right? But why? Why do you do the stig? What are you protecting when you do this? How does that application function? Right? It's because
we're gonna break it. Go ahead. We're gonna break
it. Just because you stig it right doesn't mean that it's secure, because the application can introduce a vulnerability that the stig doesn't cover.
Facts.
And so now you got a stig machine, but a vulnerability on the stig machine. So now you got to go back and understand, okay, what is this application doing? What ports are being opened? Who has access to it? How do they get access? When do they get access? Is there LDAP? Is there SSL? And then take it even one step further. What other services connect to that application? And how secure are those services connecting to that application?
Third party gonna get you hacked every time.
Every time.
But the reason I say is, and we're saying the same thing, is you saying what a senior could do. I'm saying let's just do the stig, so at least we know at the level. But like you said, just because we stig don't mean we secure. But I think we'd be a little better. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean we'll be a little better. But I think it's a ownership on the team. Let me say it that way. On the team to say, okay, we stig the machine, we put an application down, then let's go back and check the vulnerability of the application and what services connecting to that application, what are their vulnerabilities as well too. So it's a multi-layered connect or multi-layered security issue, but you have to lay it out in such a way that you check each and every piece, and each and every piece should be automated in which you check it.
Oh, facts. That's it. SOAR. That's the new thing with the SOAR security
Hmm.
orchestration. But yeah, I'm trying to get there. But
Hmm.
hell, we ain't doing the basics. Go
And the
ahead.
problem that I see is as we continue on, it's going to be so many holes in AI. We're going to find more problems in finance on the security side because working with quant developers, they're working in Python,
Facts,
they're
facts.
doing their thing there. So I think there's going to be an issue there.
And they have no
I also think
security
there's going to be an
training. Go
issue
ahead. They
along the lines of not just AI and machine learning and finance, but just your average day to day cars. I
oh
think
yeah.
we're going to see new vulnerabilities that we've never seen before.
Oh, the kid
Just
boys
my
done
thoughts.
told you, man. They done kid boys getting USBs just stealing all the cars. Yeah, facts on the car. Kid boys taking us to task already on the car.
Am I not live no more?
You live.
Can y'all
You
hear
can't
me?
hear. I
Uh
can hear
oh.
you. You can't hear me? Oh, I can hear it clearly. But no, she's right. Kid boys killing us. Um, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh shit. Can you hear me? Can
Okay. Okay, y'all can hear me, but I can't hear myself. So,
okay, but we can
you know,
hear you.
this what happened when you got Restream working in Safari. Awesome. So I'm just talking to myself right now.
no,
So I'm
we
just gonna read messages. I'm gonna hop off since I can't hear myself. I'm gonna go back down. But I
okay.
wanted to share that in terms of like because I think this is the other issue that I see. A lot of people are trying to get into cybersecurity, but they don't understand the different areas of which uh, you can get into cybersecurity. So cybersecurity of containers, the infrastructure, the compliance,
Mhm.
even and this is a very big thing. Even translating cybersecurity needs to management is an actual job, but
Oh,
people
oh.
just don't realize that. Like, how does this translate and what SLAs do we need to meet with that? And how do we actually take this document that you have been given and implement this document? How do we automate that, or how do we get that into code, or how do we get that into our infrastructure where we're doing that on a continuous basis? And it's not just a continuous ATO situation, but it's more like a continuous security situation. Like
Facts.
survival of the fittest, only strong will survive, right?
Facts. Facts.
So that's just what I see. I want to share that. I'm gonna hop off because I feel like I'm talking to myself because I can't hear nobody.
Mhm.
But yeah, you all be good. I'll be down in the chat.
All right, cool. Yeah, she brought up good points, and I just that's really what I do. And she brought up a good point is like we just talked about. How do you take keep it tech? I don't know if you're business, you can come up. Anybody can come up. I just dropped the link in there. Um, we looked at CCPA. What are those requirements? Like she said, how do you translate those into security requirements? And how do you translate those into continuous monitoring or SOAR, security orchestration? What would that be? Is part of that CCPA will be encryption, right? When you encrypt data, um, it's on a need to know basis. You want to make sure every day, every hour, at least once a month, you make sure that encryption is not taking off of that data field for that person or for that app, right? Are we going to use keys? All right, we're going to use a KMS or a parameter store inside AWS. How do we make sure that parameter stores with your keys are encrypted at a certain level? Who can see it? All right. Is it more than the 6 people on a security team? Is it more than DevSecOps? How will we know if somebody put extra people inside a parameter store, right? And where do we get that list? Like she said, all those are requirements. And how do you translate those to management? Because the management is going to come up to you as a security person and says, what do we need to do to be CCPA compliant? Because our app is going to Cali, or we got a new customer in California. So how do we make sure, once again, what are those requirements? How do we give them to the container people? How do we give them to the, shout out to my man, to the, oh yeah, shout out to the supply chain. How do we get those requirements to management? So those are the questions I get at my level. Once again, how do we be NIST? How do we be CCPA? How do we STIG? How do we CIS checks? Right, and management, they want to know at the high level. They don't want to get nitty gritty. Then, like she said, supply chain. I put third party and supply chain kind of together. All right, as you build stuff or you need stuff for your company, right? That's in that supply chain. That could be an API. That could be PCs being shipped for your company. How do you make sure nobody's dropping malware inside your hardware when you get those PCs shipped? How do you make sure they're secure? If you call a certain API, like she brought up, how do you do secure coding? How do you do secure infrastructure? Now we're doing infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, code as a service, and security as a service. Right. So how do we make sure all of those line up from a security perspective? Like she said, security is a huge domain now. I think when you say security, all right, I work for big companies, all right? When you do big companies, you got development, DevSecOps, procurement. We want to make sure the stuff is secure that we buy. Sometimes we're buying APIs, like Tim said, how do we make sure it's secure? How to make sure it's doing the right encryption? Like we talked in CCPA, what data we're sending. If it's a service provider, we need a right to know, right to delete, right? That's where your cookies come in, control it for tracking. All of those are security requirements. So once again, how do you get it to the right team with the right level of security? So, and I think, like Tim said, there's a ton of jobs, and some of those jobs are getting paid, and some of those jobs are getting paid, right? So, and two is where you're at with the career, and the big thing is where you getting those skills. I mean, how are you labbing? How are you studying? How are you getting those skill sets? Even at my age, I'm like, okay, I got to get my Docker and my Kubernetes on in 2024. From a security, I'm okay with them, but I kind of at least like to be closer to engineering level. So when I talk to our engineers, I understand what they're saying, right? When I talk to our Kubernetes guys or our Docker. So from an AWS perspective, you know, they got ECS, EKS, right? Meaning that software as a service, and AWS is handling the bottom line infrastructure, but you spinning it up, you still spin up the stuff like we showed it was shared responsibility. So what is AWS responsible for? What you're responsible for? And back to that from a CCPA, what do you need configured in those services to make sure you meet that compliance level, or aka that's data privacy, right? You got data privacy and you got security. Right, data privacy is what do I need to do to that data to make sure it's data privacy. CCPA, GDPR, Virginia's got theirs. Right, how do I own that data, control that data? Data security is how do I lock down Kubernetes? How do I lock down Docker? Shout out to Keep It Tech. How do I lock down that Red Hat Linux box? Right, so what are those? What are those, like Tim said, what are those requirements to make that happen? Right. That's what I hope to do more with my channel. Shout out to her. I might do a membership at a level, and we, you know, start doing that behind the scenes. I'm just trying to figure out what's kind of make that a little better. Once I said, everybody's trying to get those skills. And like Tim said, there's a ton of jobs out there. GRC is I think a nice gym to get you in. You don't have to be super technical. You have to have understanding of both of those, and be able to check those architectures. Like we're looking at one on the screen once again. What does Cognito has to do? What does API Gateway has to do? There's a Lambda, DynamoDB. There's no SQL. Queues are real big. So that's once again an infrastructure from an architect. Some Tim might set up. How will we review it and make sure it was locked down? So once again, I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer, see if anybody's got any more questions. I appreciate y'all for joining me. Once I said I want to hit data privacy. Like I said, I do more and more of that, which surprises me as I get a little older. The more data privacy. Or when I worked for the big state, I did a lot of data privacy. So, um, once again, some I never thought I would really get into. Like Keep It Techie said, you never know what tech is going to take you to. Right? And two is those you just keep adding skills on top of skills. So I did a little engineering when I was younger. So I got into NIST and hardening federal systems. Did a lot of IRS work, IRS Pub 1075. Like Tim said, those are requirements that you need to put on your architecture to make it secure. Then I pivoted to that to looking up data privacy laws that went with the Fed part, right? Compliance to data privacy. So hopefully I get back to engineering. I kind of miss building stuff, so I've been contemplating if I want to go back to engineering. But Tim knows when you're engineering, you get those calls in the middle of the night. I was like, I don't know if I want to get those calls in the middle of the night anymore, though. Engineering pays a little better, though. The security engineering pays the best, probably. So, different levels depending on what you like. Ton of ways to get your foot in the door. Ton of ways to progress. Ton of ways to keep grinding and getting the bag. Like I said, I'll be 55 this year, so trying to get my last decade, give me a couple container knowledges, and slide on into retirement. That's my plan. So once again, I'm gonna check out my man Akin. I'm gonna do that. Hopefully, see if he's still on. I'm gonna see if he sent me an email. Let me check it out once again. Okay, my man Rondo sent me something. I'm gonna peek at it real quick. Let's see. Oh, that's not what I want to look for. See what Rondo said. Seems like the housing securities are a byproduct, and we need this ASAP API up, running, and a return on ASAP. We're worried about. Yep, I agree with that, Rondo, and that's always been in there. Security versus functionality versus time versus. And in the old days, apps wasn't getting hacked as quick as they are now. So, and still, there's there's a ton of more people getting hacked. A lot of times too, when you first starting off, Rondo, you're not making any money. So functionality gets money, security gets you from getting that. So people are trying to get the money you're at first. So you always see that they're trying to really get the functionality. I'd like get the functionality done. So now that definitely is true. I still see that today where people push back when I give them security from developers. Hey, Ken, I got that. I'll check that out in the morning and get back with you. I got the what's up with these entry level security? No, I agree with you on Aiken. That's always been the problem with cybersecurity. The reason why is it's a weird thing to say is people wanted you to have some time underneath your belt before you got into cybersecurity. So I think when you see entry level in cybersecurity, they want you to have been a DBA, a sysadmin, or a programmer first before you got into security. Probably in the last, I want to say 5 years. I don't think it's 10 years where you could just get into cybersecurity as a pure entry level job. Because when I first got into cybersecurity, it was more like an apprentice thing where they want you to be a programmer, a junior programmer. And once you became a programmer, it's called Purple Team because you created websites and that's a thing that gets hacked. But if you developed a website for 2 or 3 years, you knew what's a SQL statement, what's a JDP statement, what's validation, what's inside Apache or SQL Server, what's the user you use to connect in the database to pull it all back to your website. So I think they kind of wanted you to have, or shout out to Keep It Techie. You be a sysadmin. You understand the users, groups, everyone. You understand the stick. You understand creating a user with no password. And you got a sudo to another user to up your privileges. So I think ACAN. So I think when it first came out, they wanted you to have a skill set in one of those domains before you got in security. So I think that's why that 5 years kind of happened. Because shit, I programmed for probably 10 years. I was an Oracle DBA for 5. So I probably had about I was probably 15 years in before I even got it. But cybersecurity really didn't exist, right? So I kind of grew into cybersecurity when cybersecurity really started. So I think that's where that comes from. Like, you know, all the security teams I've been on in the last 10, man, when I was 30, I was the youngest person on the team, and everybody was like 40 and 50. A lot of security teams be old. Now, facts. I think it is now, though, DP Scribe. I think we're switching to that. My other team, we pull a couple people out the help desk. So I'm with you on that. I think it's changing, DP Scribe. I think it's changing. I'm old, so I think it's something. I'm like you. I think I know it's changed over the last probably 5 to 7 years, where it's pure entry level like that. But no, that's kind of the way I grew up on a 2DP Scribe, where, like I said, I programmed for like 10 years, probably 7. I was a DPA for 5. I was a web admin for 2. So shit, I was about 35 when I got into security. So I had about 15 years under my belt. So that's where it used to be. But once again, DP Scribe, I think that's changed. We're a million cybersecurity people short, DP. So we're gonna have to do something to get them up to speed. So I think that's a video for a discussion for another time. So, but once again, DP Scribe, I think those times has changed. I think those times has changed. I think, like I said, I think it's for the better. You got to coach them up, make sure they're ready. Is a good thing for. I don't know, DP Scribe. I mean, I just think it's like anything else. You got to coach them up, make sure they're ready. I mean, is that a good thing? I don't know. I think that's debatable, DP Scribe. I used to be, I think with you, I've kind of slowly changing, because I think you can train people. I think tooling's better. I think SIMs are better. I think artificial intelligence is better. I think you sometimes, especially, you need bodies. You need bodies at a certain level. You need bodies. What's your take on that, DP Scribe? I think you said it right here, though. That's your take, right? Cybersecurity is not an entry-level job. So I see that. I might be changing, DP Scribe. I might be changing. See, I'm going to drop the link one more time. I think we're going to call it a day and get ready for hump day. I think we're going to get ready for hump day tomorrow. Oh, there's my man in the house. What's up, man? What's up, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. I can't complain. Just talking about CCPA, a little bit of the data privacy. I'm throwing a little data privacy in there today. So
yeah, and I kind of missed the beginning of your stream, so I apologize.
No,
I'm coming in on it late, but yeah, I've heard of the California Consumer, what's it called? Privacy
Act. CCPA.
Yeah, Act.
Privacy, CCPA Privacy Act.
And I think it's a good thing. I don't know where you stand on it, but
it is. I guess my thing is I think it should be a federal standard. Like Cali got one, Virginia got one, New York's got one. They're all a little different. And Cali actually took theirs from GDPR. So I think,
Okay.
but go ahead. That's my thing. It's good, but I think we need a federal one because now, depending on where you got data, a lot of people don't realize that you need to kind of figure out, okay, what is this state's different? And each one of those states could be a little different. We actually just do. I tell people to do CCPA because it's the hardest. Then you'll have everything covered. But go ahead. So,
nah, you're right. But yeah, that's one of the things I've always talked about on my channel is protecting your privacy and just trying to opt out of all these different programs that automatically opt you into providing them all that information. And it's all basically to serve ads. It can be looked at as innocent, but they go a little too far with it. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day. So yeah, I agree. Some regulations should be in place. And I hope that ties to your conversation.
No, you're right there. You're right there. I think NIST from a federal, they actually got a privacy security family. It's not as strong as CCPA. No, you right there, and that's what they talked about in CCPA, and they compared it to GDPR. And both of them you should have to opt in before they can sell your data. You need to know what they're doing with your data, and the right to know and right to delete your data if you want them to have it. So basically, that's the three big things on both of those.
Yeah, and definitely they should not make it difficult. Like some of them, they want you to you got to send an email and all this stuff. It should just be a simple form. I'm opting out of this,
I guess my only pushback, which is not huge, but I go back and forth, is that's how Facebook and Google make their money, man. So so my thing is, hey, just don't use our product, right? So from a money, because you got to think. I always ask, I talk in front of students. I go, how much does Meta Facebook cost you? They go $0. I go, you're wrong. You paying with your privacy. But go ahead.
Yeah. Nah, you're right. And that's essentially how a lot, the platform that we're on now. They by the information they gather based on you watching videos and what you're interested in is also a form of gathering your data, and they use that to advertise to you.
Oh, facts.
Yeah.
Facts. And they good at it too. I try to make sure though, but then you kind of get in this, you trying to get in this hole of always agreeing with people. Sometimes I'm like, man, I got to get out the manosphere, man. I'm starting to dislike women now. I'm just playing. The manosphere, they always hit you with the red pill and the black pill and by the time I listen to BGS and Obsidian and this dude, I like, man, I got to get off of YouTube, man.
Yeah, I actually took a break, man. I haven't been around many of those channels this week. I've been kind of focusing on some of the things I need to do because I've actually signed contracts with companies to create content. So that's I'm not trying to brag, but
that's it. I'm trying to get to your level. I actually got a couple emails myself. I'm trying to get a little bigger, but if you got good content, they reach out to you, man.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So no, that's not bragging. That trying to get to where you at, man. But yeah, brother Michael laughing at me like, yeah, you got to stay off it, man. By the time I listen to BGS and a little Kevin Samuel said, it's like, you got a family though, man. It's just me. So I be bored. I like, man, I got to get my ass off of YouTube. Or, at least just try to listen to tech, Sergeant Willie P, man. I'll be listening to me. I'm like you, man. I got to go play my grandson or something, man. We're going to have to go walking or something.
Yeah, and I be doing crazy stuff. I be watching crazy content like, not crazy, but good content like barbecuing, because I got one of those barbecue grills, the Traeger, the pellet grill, and so I'll be looking at videos to do stuff on there, and but it's great working from home, man. I'm telling you.
Oh man, I never go back in the office, man. Man, I don't even put on clothes anymore, man. I'm like a recluse, man. I'm gonna be like them Wally, man. I'll be having little arms in a minute. I don't do nothing. I order food and just eat, man. I'm watching my friend's dog. She like 13. We just walk about a half a block and come back home and eat. That's how we do. But yeah, I gotta, man. But the cool thing though, shout out to you too, man. You can learn anything you want off of YouTube, man. I'm gonna try to build a car in a minute, man. I think I can do it.
Speaking of that, I had to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. Check out Udemy. They having a sale, so I probably could buy about 3 AWS's courses for $14.95. So go check out Udemy if you want to learn something or pick up something. Go check out my man, of course, Keep It Techie, Tam, Struggle Security, but get a couple cheap Udemy courses while you at it. Go ahead, man.
Nah, you're right. You're right. It's always, sales throughout the year on all these platforms. So you just gotta stay on top of it and catch them. You know what I'm saying? So But yeah, I was about to say, speaking of learning stuff off YouTube, I had forgot everything on how to change the oil on the car out there, because I hadn't done it in a while. I typically just take it to the shop. Well, over the years, and I kind of stopped doing it and started taking it to the shop. But I wanted to change the oil again to show the kids.
Okay.
And I had to watch a YouTube video, but they didn't know about it.
But
I had to watch a YouTube video just to remind myself, because the filter and all that stuff is all in these new cars is different.
I can't even get to my transmission fluid anymore, man. I got this little Chevy new car. I was like, where's this? I don't know. You got to take it back. You can't even add to it, man. It's crazy. I'm like, I don't know if I'd have bought it if I'd have known that. I got a good deal on it. Crazy thing, I just drove 4,000 miles last year. I didn't go anywhere, man.
Yeah, me too, bro. Like, and not spending much on gas. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, man. I tell people, so that's the big deal. Are they gonna make people come back, or is everybody gonna have to come back? Or so I think the middle and the small size companies using it as a benefit. They're like, we can't pay you X, but you can stay at home. I'm like, I can work with that. Because I save so much other stuff. My friend, I'm cool with this one dude. He on a dry cleaner. She's like, man, his business hurting because ain't nobody work clothes. Ain't nobody. Everybody, a lot of people work from home in my little block. So it's crazy, man.
Yeah, I think it was a city that we're talking about. A lot of the businesses downtown or having issues and having to close up shop because the typical people that come down and order food, the people that work in those office buildings, they're not there and they're not spending money because they're working from home.
I'm in Indiana. There was another, I think it was Memphis. They actually wrote the governor and told them, tell the big companies, and the big companies tell the companies to make people come back to work. And a lot of governments are trying to do it because they gave those company tax breaks.
Okay.
So that's kind of one of the things. Let's see. Until I pass Security Plus, everything is not test or tech related. Notification is out. No, I feel you. Shout out to Security Plus, man. I passed it in 2005. For some reason, I let it lapse. I didn't do my continuing ed, which wasn't smart. But I'm studying for my CISPA, Ken. So I'm right there with you, man. I'm trying to get it.
Yeah, you don't want to let those lapse because I have to keep mine up because I lose my job.
Yeah. I'm not in DOD anymore. Yeah, if you got to be in there. Yeah, because it's 1, 2, and 3. Because I was like, let me get the CISP. That'll be 3 if I need to
go back in. Yeah,
if I need to go back in. A lot of times they give you 6 months to get it, but I'm gonna have all that pressure on me, man.
Yeah.
I had to do that one time. They were like, you got to get it in 6 months. I was like, oh my God. But no, but that was the play. I think I'm going to wrap it up, man. It's almost midnight of mine. I appreciate you coming up, man.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to show you support. I also shared it out for you and everything. And I'm sorry I missed the beginning. I was doing something. I don't know. I was helping Tech G a little earlier.
Yeah, I share this stuff out.
Yeah.
Tell him to email me. I emailed him. He never emailed me back. Tell him to email me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I hit him up.
He reached out, but just hit him up for me.
Oh, I think he was he's looking for it. Well, I tell you that. Well, he'll tell you. I think he's looking for instructors.
Okay. I don't know if I want that pressure on me. Just tell him to reach out to me, man.
Yeah. Okay.
You got my number too. Give my number. I emailed him, but if he didn't get it, just give it to him.
Okay.
Gotcha. All right, man. I appreciate you.
All right. I drop down.
Peace, all right, man. Peace out. I check every. I appreciate you, Aiken. I'll respond to you tomorrow, Aiken, for that email. And I'll look up that CMC. I got a video if you want to check mine out. I appreciate everybody for joining me. You touched on that privacy. I'll probably start doing a little more AWS stuff and actually build the stuff we're looking at. Once again, please subscribe, and you know how we do it. You see it. Let's get it. I'm out for tonight. Happy hump day, everybody.